Nazi Germany decided that certain people shouldn't be allowed to live. Are you going to sit here and tell them that they were wrong?
I mean, in the way that they went about it, yeah.
Hey, I'm John, and I went on a road trip to find answers to some of life's biggest questions. Join me on the road trip to truth.
Truth, it doesn't exist, in my opinion.
Doesn't matter what somebody else thinks.
No certainty, everything is subjective.
Imagine a world where everyone interpreted traffic signs any way they wanted.
It'd be complete chaos, and yet we're living in a world just like that. It says that we can interpret our own experiences and even what's right and wrong based on our own subjective standard. But what happens when we come to different conclusions? Is it okay? No harm, no foul? Or are we speeding towards a head-on collision? To figure that out, we have to ask one important question. What is truth?
What is truth? It is...
Truth, it doesn't exist, in my opinion.
It's up to interpretation.
It is... the truth.
It's a hard one to define.
Something very concrete.
I'd say it's a fact. It's just the way things go.
Truth is kind of this indefinable concept.
It's what the majority defines as acceptable.
We asked a lot of people a question, what is truth? Few of them had the answer. Why do you think that is that few people have the answer to what truth is?
Philosophers have been asking that question for all of human history.
Dr. Nathan Buznitz is a PhD in historical theology with a focus on the earliest Christian authors. He knows his stuff.
I think if we were to define truth in a really simple way, we would say that truth is reality. Truth is that which corresponds to reality, and to know the truth is to have information that accords with that which truly is.
A lot of people said it's what I feel, or it's what I think is right. So who determines what truth is?
You do.
It's what you think. If you feel like that's your truth, you don't got to prove it to be truthful to anybody else.
Anything can be true, even alive. A good amount of people believe in it.
Yeah, well, there's been a shift in Western culture, even over the last 100 years or so, towards a more relativistic way of thinking about truth, that somehow truth is all relative and there is no absolute truth.
Do you think a person can know if something is really true?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Do you believe in absolute truth?
No.
Do you believe that all truth is relative, person to person?
Yeah.
In your experience, do people actually live consistently with that statement that all truth is relative?
No, I don't think people live consistently with it. They use it as an excuse, especially when it comes to moral norms, because they want to live the way they want to live. But when it comes to certain things like the laws of nature, facts of science, they might call them, they operate much more as those who believe that there actually are absolute truths, as opposed to those who would operate in a world in which everything's relative.
What is 4 times 4?
16.
I think it's 60. Is that true?
Problem is that math has one answer and emotions
Yeah, it
don't.
depends on what's asked. Like, if somebody asks you a math question, that does have a truth.
So there are some things that are ultimately...
Solidified truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think morality falls into that category?
No.
Oh.
Okay. So do you think that if a culture decides on something to be moral, that's okay for that culture, and it cannot be called immoral by us?
I mean, everybody's culture is different. What one person thinks is moral, I might think is immoral.
I know this is an extreme example, but Nazi Germany decided that certain people shouldn't be allowed to live. Jews, black people, homosexuals, they shouldn't be allowed to live, okay?
Right.
Is that wrong? That's
I
what they
think
decided.
that's playing God.
Okay? But
Yeah,
they decided on that in their hearts and as a community, that was what was true and that's what it was right, okay?
Right.
Are you gonna sit here and tell them that they were wrong?
I mean, in the way that they went about it, yeah.
Well, we would certainly acknowledge that things like emotions can be subjective. But when it comes to realms and categories of truth, even they acknowledge that, for example, math or the laws of logic, these represent absolute universal truths. So the disconnect is when suddenly they get over into the category of morality and religion. They want morality and religion to be subjective. Morality and religion is not subjective because the same source of truth that stands behind the laws of logic and math stands behind the laws of morality, and that standard is God himself.
So in one of the classes I took in school, they talked about how truth is not universal, it's relative. When I talked to people on campus, a lot of them said, yeah, truth is relative. Does that sentence, truth is relative, even make sense?
Belief can be relative, but belief is not the same thing as truth. So just because I believe something, even if I believe it sincerely, that doesn't make it true. And a simple illustration, I think, will make this clear. I might believe, even sincerely, that I could fly like Superman. But that belief is going to be exposed as not being true. The moment that I jump out of an airplane without a parachute, I'm gonna smack into the reality of gravity. So the reality doesn't change just because my perspective changes or because my belief system changes. And so what we're looking for when we think about worldviews is, in order for a belief system to be valid, it has to correspond to reality, to the way things really are.
Can there be more than one truth?
Certainly there can be more than one fact about things. We can talk about how there are different truths that complement one another. But when we think in terms of universal absolutes, there can be no two contradictory truths. And that's called the law of non-contradiction. And so when we think about universal truths and systems of belief, two contradictory worldviews cannot both simultaneously be true. Atheism and theism cannot both be true.
Atheism, strictly defined, is an absolute truth claim that says there is no God. But there can be no atheist because no one has all knowledge of all events, for all places, in all times, to be able to make the definitive claim that there's absolutely, positively no God. That leaves us with theism, a general belief or acknowledgement that there is a deity. This worldview does not demand all knowledge, but just a little bit of logic and reason. Think of it like this. If you speed down a country road and there's no speed limit signs posted by an authority, if a farmer yells at you to slow down, you could just shout back, "That's just your preference." You can say that because without an objective lawgiver, the farmer can only prefer that you slow down. He can't insist that you're breaking a law or that you must slow down to pay a consequence. Let's reason backwards. Every culture for all time has agreed that some behaviors are universally wrong. People don't say, "I'd prefer that you don't kill that child." We know there are moral absolutes. Those morals are our signs that point to a moral lawgiver. If a moral lawgiver did not exist, there would be no moral absolutes. But we know that there are moral absolutes. Therefore, a moral lawgiver exists, and that raises a very important question. Who is that moral lawgiver? Next on Road Trip to Truth.
What's up, guys? Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Next week, we got more content coming at you, so make sure you subscribe.